Okay, so I'm starting off with, this is 300 GSM card and it's A3 size, and I've folded it in half and scored it with my bone folder. This is going to be a really large card. The envelope I'm going to make for it is the A4 size envelope that I've got a tutorial on my channel for that. I'll link it below. That's the envelope I'm going to make. So this needs to be just slightly smaller than A4 size because I want it to fit into the A4 size envelope. So I'm just going to trim this down just a little bit around the edges. So I've printed out a ton of images for Kim on a piece of cardstock. This is about 200 GSM, this cardstock. And I've also done a little sentiment on the other side of my piece of paper, my piece of card. So I'm going to use all of these for the front of the card. For the inside, I've done, I've got a piece of A3 paper, folded it in half and put it through my printer so that it would come out. So it's going to open up like that inside my card. I've cut about ½ a centimetre off of each edge of this A4 size. So I cut 1 centimetre off each edge, or just under 1 centimetre on this edge, but 1 centimetre each way that way, so that this tucks in nicely just inside. So that's going to be my insert. And now I'm going to take these images and I'm going to layer them up onto some nice pieces of card and just arrange them on the front. So I'm just using my paper trimmer to trim up all of the images that I'd selected for Kim's birthday card. Just want to trim them down, and then I'm going to take this is watercolour cardstock. This is 300 GSM watercolour cardstock. It's really good quality actually as well. I tea dye it in batches and use it usually for gift tags and things, but I'm using it to layer Kim's images up onto. I'm just going to use some scattered straw distress ink to give it a bit more of a vintage feel, and then I can mount all of Kim's pictures up onto the watercolour card. I'm just using some dry adhesive for that, giving it a good burnish so that it gets a nice contact. And then once I've finished adding all of the pictures to the watercolour mounts, I've taken some neutral coloured cardstock and cut them into sort of random squares and oblongs. You've probably seen me do this on many occasions on cards that I've made in the past, and I'm just roughing up the edges just to give it a nice vintage feel. And again, I'll go in with the distress ink, the scattered straw distress ink, just to make it look a little bit more, have a bit more of a vintage feel to it. So that's what I'm doing now. I don't care if the sides of the paper get bent up or ripped up a bit more, that's all part of the look really. So the more rough it looks, the nicer it tends to look on the card. And then once I'd roughed them all up, I've stuck them all together again with some dry adhesive. So I've just layered them to a design that I like, and I'm using the front of the card as my sort of template just to see where they're going to sit. The card, by the way, that I'm using, the card base, it's 300 GSM cardstock. That's a watercolour cardstock as well. It's a watercolour card that I get from the works. It's not really great for painting on, but it makes really good card bases, so I use it quite often for that. And then I'm just using my die cutter to cut out the sentiment, and again I'm going to layer that up onto some of my lovely watercolour paper which I've tea dyed, and I'll use my distress ink again just to age it up, and then mount that. Now I'm taking my sewing machine, which I often do. I've kept all of my adhesive to the sort of centre of the pieces of paper that I've glued together, just because I generally tend to put a nice border, a stitch border around a lot of my cards. So even if I don't do that, if I stick the adhesive in the middle, then I've got that option. And I'm just using a zigzag stitch and just making a nice border of stitching. And then I got some, this is vintage lace, it's probably about 30 years old actually. I use it a lot, and because I've got a ton of it, I'm just prettying up my card a little bit more with some of the vintage lace, again using dry adhesive, and wrapping it around the card front. Oh, going for a double layer of lace. Kim is special though. So once I've done that, I think I'm ready to add this piece to my card. Yep. Now I think I'm going to need to apologise for this piece of footage. For some reason I think it's a little bit out of focus. I don't know what I was doing, but anyway, I'm just adding my dry adhesive, and I'm going to pop that straight on the card front. And then once I've done that, I can start adding my images of Kim, and I'm adding those with some dimensional adhesive pads, just so that they sit off of the card a little bit. It just makes it a little bit more interesting. And I'm just basically going to go through and pop them all down in a nice little design that I like. And once that's done, the card is finished. Apart from, I think, I'm just going to add some bling. Obviously, it wouldn't be a card by me, would it, if I didn't add a little bit of bling? So that is what's coming next. A little bit of bling, and then we're done. So thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Thanks guys, bye bye.